Hello, this is Chris Swenson, President of CRSPE Incorporated. Thank you for joining me for The Road and the Cow, a discussion of market-based travel demand management. We're going to be looking at things from a little bit different perspective. Hopefully we'll have some fun with it and convey some information on this whole concept of roadway pricing as it relates to how it can help us solve the issues that many of us are dealing with on a local, state, or national level. For now, I invite you to enjoy The Road and the Cow, a transportation fable. The Road and the Cow, a transportation fable. Once upon a time, there was a road and a cow. Now, these two seemingly very different things actually had many things in common. Both require significant resources to produce additional units. The road needs more land to put the roads on. It obviously needs raw materials and labor to convert the raw materials to the roadway. The cow needs land for pasture, food and water to grow the cow, and labor to get the food and water to the cow. Both impact the everyday lives of most people. Roadways are how we get around. Cows, even though we're eating a little bit less red meat than we used to, are obviously a very important food source here in the United States. Both have homogeneous production costs. We've already talked about the fact that providing a unit of roadway capacity at 8 o'clock in the morning costs basically the same as providing that unit of capacity at 8 o'clock at night. Growing a pound of cow hoof costs the same thing as growing a pound of prime steak. Both require significant lead time to produce additional units. Providing new roadways is a process that can take years, if not decades. For the cow, you've still got to go out, buy the land for pasture, get the labor in place, get the food in place, get the water in place, and of course you've got to give the cows time to do the cow thing that they have to do. There was, however, one significant difference between the road and the cow. The road's product capacity sold at a cost based on its average cost to produce. In economic terms, average cost pricing. This could be through the form of fuel taxes, registration and license fees, sales taxes, possibly tolls. Now, while some of these took into account how much of the roadway capacity was being consumed, none of them take a look at the value of that capacity by time of day. The cow's product, beef, varied in price based on its market value. Ground chuck at about $1.59 a pound, sirloin steak at $4.99 if you could find a reasonable sale, and prime filet mignon at about $14 a pound. But then, one day, Beef 21. The president signed the Beef Equity Act for the 21st century. Beef 21 mandates that all beef, regardless of cut or grade, will sell for the same price. Cooperating with the president, beef producers said no problem, that's about $3 per pound total for the whole cow. The public was delighted. $3 a pound steak was on every menu, and you could smell the grills firing up wherever you went. By week 2, however, some strange things had begun to happen. Beef counters were stampeded early in the day, but by noontime, they were deserted. No steaks were left. but a lot of hamburger was. CNN reported that packing houses, while they couldn't meet the demand for steak, watched thousands of pounds of economically undesirable hamburger spoil. By week 5, people were really beginning to get a little weary of the whole thing, realizing that while they were no longer competing for prime cuts of beef with their money, they were competing for it with their time. This poor guy was at the store at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that he would have a prime cut of beef to put on the table when his wife's boss showed up for dinner that night. By week 10, the inefficiencies that had been introduced in the system caught up with price, and beef prices went from $3 a pound to $5 per pound. The ranchers had a very simple explanation for this. They still had to raise the entire cow, but they could only sell part of it under Beef 21. By week 24, people were beginning to actively question whether or not Beef 21 had backfired. One of the prime moving forces for Beef 21 had been the impact to lower income households. But the Department of Agriculture pointed out that $5 a pound tenderloin doesn't help the family that could only afford $1.50 a pound hamburger. By week 35, corporate icons were beginning to crumble. McDonald's and Burger King both announced that they will seek bankruptcy court protection, explaining that $7 Big Macs and Whoppers just don't sell. The Department of Agriculture announced that a beef shortage was imminent. It's a tragic situation because they can't keep up with the demand for premium cuts, but hundreds of tons of unwanted beef are now spoiling. By week 50, the crisis was deepening. The beef industry had begun a takeover of thousands of acres of land for beef production. Government subsidies had come in, stabilized the price at $5 a pound, and the more desirable cuts of beef were still a bargain. At the same time, however, the inability to sell cuts of beef that had once found their way into hamburger resulted in a record low per acre yield of sellable beef. By week 100, mounting public pressure forced congressional action. While repealing Beef 21 was discussed, the concept of allowing market forces to determine the price of a product that was so vital to the nation drew stiff opposition. One well-known senator remarked, "Why should the rich feast on filet while the economically disadvantaged must chew on chuck?" As with all good fables, we have a moral. Pricing will solve any problem. Well, no, that's not true. Eat more chicken. Well, the good folks at Chick-fil-A probably think this is a great idea, but that's not the moral of our story either. Pricing is a powerful strategy with a proven track record of efficiently allocating limited resources. That's it. And we need to take a look at ways to make it work for us in the transportation industry. Pricing already takes care of allocating many resources that are critical to the nation's health. There's nothing inherent in our transportation system, our surface transportation system, that says pricing shouldn't be used there. In fact, quite frankly, even though I'm a transportation engineer, if I were forced to make a choice between having roadways for the rest of my life and having something to eat for the rest of my life, the food's going to win out. And the fact is that our food system, which is basically controlled by market forces, is the envy of the world. Our transportation system, while good, needs some help. If you'd like to discuss value pricing further, please give me a call at the phone number listed or drop me an email at the email address shown. If you'd like further information on value pricing in general, particularly the national perspective, The folks at the University of Minnesota, in cooperation with the Federal Highway Administration and Minnesota DOT, have a great website at valuepricing.org. Thank you for joining me for The Road and the Cow. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I wish you success as we take on the transportation challenges ahead.